Don't believe them when they tell you about race-based privilege and equity. The Daily Show. Trevor Noah recently went on a rant about white privilege and said, not all crimes are the same. So, a thief is not the same as a murderer. So reparations is about doing this, that, and this. Okay, listen, I understand systemic racism. I made a documentary about it. It exists. It's just misrepresented by the identitarians who are lying to you about what privilege really is. And the point is, when it comes to racial equity, we can't actually quantify privilege. You can't. There's a video of a woman who appears to be African American, and she gets a DNA test, and it turns out she's mostly white. And she kind of freaks out about it. That's the problem. You're basing off whether somebody deserves something based on how they look, and we just don't know. And we have the story we have here. I want to get into the first bit of the news before we get into the philosophy. Chicago Police Union wants a federal investigation into the Smollet case. The police are pissed. Rahm Emanuel, the mayor's called it a whitewash of justice. Jussie Smollet is walking around claiming he's innocent. He's not. State's attorney said, we don't believe he's innocent. He's guilty. This was just essentially his plea agreement. Let's make one thing clear. Jussie Smollet, who is biracial, that's my understanding, he got off. He walked. He paid 10 grand and he got away with 16 felonies. I think it's actually 17 because they added 16, maybe more. The point is, when you are rich and famous and friends with the Obamas, you don't go to jail. You go and stuff envelopes with Jesse Jackson. You pay 10 grand. Do you think this guy sweats money? You think he cares about $10,000? Hell no. Imagine what it's like to be a poor person and told you've got to give up 10 grand, otherwise you're facing 16 felonies. Let's talk about privilege. It's not race-based, it's class-based, plain and simple, and it's always been this way. And they will tell you it's about race so that criminals like Jussie Smollet can get away with committing crimes and then claim they're fighting for the marginalized communities. You can have wealthy white people cheat their way into college and talk about how woke they are. You can't quantify race. We can't figure out. Let me tell you a story. I used to work at O'Hare Airport, and it was a wide mix of people. There was a group they called the Asian Mafia as a joke. It was funny. I think they actually called themselves that. It was all mostly Filipino. But if you were from the Southeast Asian area, they were like, yeah, come hang out with us. So they were really excited when me and my brother started working there because we were part Korean. And so they're like, yeah, come hang out with us. We're cool. But everybody really hung out with each other. It was just kind of funny. And they would always offer us Spam sandwiches, which is really funny because like Spam is big in I think in the Philippines. But anyway, the point is, we had a conversation about what's the politically correct way to label someone's race while working in these places. How do you describe people? And there were a lot of people who are Latino, and there were some people who had Spanish names from the Philippines because of, I think, like Magellan or something. And so people would look at them and assume because they spoke Spanish and Tagalog, they were like, oh, you must be Latino. And they'd be like, no, I'm Filipino. And then they would get into an argument. It's like, are Filipinos Pacific Islanders? Are they Asian? This is where the conversation goes. African American. And then people started saying like, yeah, that's like the right way to explain, right? And then this one dude got really, really mad. And he was like, I'm not African American. I'm from Haiti. And he was pissed, right? I'm not going to, say what he exactly said because I don't want to get in trouble, but he was pissed. And he was talking about how he emigrated here and he was always like working class. He was never this like poor, impoverished, enslaved or anything like that. And it was actually upsetting to him that when he comes here, people are condescending. They act like he's a victim and all these things. When he had the money and the drive to come to this country and start working, the point is, I can recognize systemic racism. I can recognize the history of the past. But how do we quantify who is more or less privileged? Trevor Noah, I ask you this. He talks about privilege. Okay, Trevor Noah, you're from South Africa. I don't know your past. I know you're biracial. I am also mixed race. Which one of us is more or less privileged? I grew up impoverished in America. I don't know. I don't know Trevor Noah's upbringing. He came from South Africa to the U.S. Seems like he had the money. He's a wealthy, I'm pretty sure he's a millionaire on a highly rated show on Comedy Central. Who's more privileged? Who's deserving of reparations? Should my family get reparations because of the miscegenation laws? He wasn't a citizen here, so should he get reparations for being? You can't quantify this stuff. What we see with Jussie Smollett is how they wield the idea of racial equity to benefit the already extremely wealthy elites. This dude he's friends with the former president. You want to act like he's deserving of, you know what, man, this guy, he's got to pay 10 grand to get away with 16 plus 16, I believe, potentially more than 16 felonies. Well, let's see what's going on with the police. Kevin Graham, president of the Chicago Fraternal Order of Police, said the demand is based on news reports about text messages between Fox and an attorney about, according to him, diverting the case from Chicago Police Department to a federal investigation. Fox, the state's attorney for Cook County, recused herself from the Smollet investigation in mid-February. Graham, who spoke to reporters after prosecutors announced they were dropping charges against Smollet, said he originally made the request to the U.S. Department of Justice last week. He also has asked federal investigators to look into a letter sent to Smollet days before he was alleged he was attacked on a Chicago street. We're doubling down on that. We want to make sure that the Justice Department takes a very hard look with that case and what went on today, he said. You now have a bunch of activists on the left claiming he was exonerated. And it's mind-blowing because these people don't read the news. I try to be factually accurate to the best of my ability. I entertain the possibility the media and the police were wrong, just like in the Mueller probe. However, the mayor went on TV and said he did it. The police came on TV and said he did it. Even the attorney's office said, we are not exonerating him. He is not innocent. So what are you doing? Oh, they're playing a game because Trump claimed he was totally exonerated, even though the report said he wasn't. Okay, first, when the police investigate, when there's a law enforcement investigation, they do not exonerate. The state's attorney's office does not exonerate. So I believe it is fair to point out Smollet was not exonerated, nor was the president. They can claim they were, but they weren't. But the state's attorney's office said he's not innocent, and they stand by the investigation, and he paid restitution, forfeiting his bond, $10,000, and had to work community service. Sounds to me like he had to pay penance, which is a sign of guilt. And according to many sources in the news, this is why he can't sue. He can't file a suit for a wrongful whatever, malicious prosecution or, defamation, because in a civil case, they will say his forfeiture of money and his community service are evidence of guilt. He can't sue for it. They talk about a former Obama aide, former chief of staff to Michelle Obama and lawyer, reached out to Fox on February 1st. Chen wrote the family and said they had concerns about the investigation. Fox emailed Chen saying, in part, spoke to Superintendent Johnson. I convinced him to reach out to the FBI to ask that they take over the investigation. He is reaching out now and will get back to me shortly. Later, another person identified by Fox's office as a family friend asked the prosecutor whether they could talk on the phone. She says Chen gave her Fox's number. Hours later, Fox texts the unidentified family friend that she spoke to the police superintendent earlier. He made the ask, trying to figure out the logistics. The person responds, oh my God, this would be a huge victory. The state's attorney's office was working with a family friend and former Obama advisor to help Jussie Smollet. And they responded, this would be a huge victory. Corruption at its finest. The text message exchange went back and forth with Fox and the family friend until February 13th. And these messages are why Fox recused herself from the investigation. Cook County State's Attorney's Office spokeswoman Tandra Simonton said earlier this month. CNN reached out to Fox on Tuesday, but didn't get a response. Efforts to get a comment from the Department of Justice on Tuesday night were also unsuccessful. Now, I am citing CNN on purpose. It's really funny because I explain this all the time, but I guess you can't explain it enough because not everybody watches every video I produce. I have explained in the past, when it comes to certain stories, I use certain sources on purpose. Why am I using CNN in a story that is critical of Jussie Smollett? Because CNN pushes a particular narrative and leans to the left. And the reason why I'm using them is because this story is negative for Jussie Smollett. It's the police wanting an investigation. If even CNN is writing a story claiming that the police are demanding a federal investigation, and then they go on to highlight the conflict of interest between the attorney's office, friends of Jussie Smollett's family, and talking about how it could be a huge victory, then it gives itself more weight, because typically CNN is on the other side of these cultural arguments. Like Brian Stelter's on TV going, we don't know what happened. We don't know. Okay, the police said they have a witness who was around the corner and heard no yelling. Okay, We have video of the brothers buying the equipment, and we have contradictory statements and lies from Smollet. It's like, you want to say we don't know what happened? Sure, I get what you're trying to say, Brian Stelter, but come on. So if even now CNN is going to go on the record about the state's attorney's office and a former Obama aide, then that's a lot more weight. Okay, the point is, I can go to the Daily Wire or Fox News, and you know they're always going to be on one side of the argument, and people are going to claim, oh, Fox News is lying. Fox News is conservative media. Of course they're going to say this. Can't say that about CNN. I mean, I guess you're still going to have people trying to claim CNN is corporate media and they lie, which, sure, but CNN's on the other side of these things. Whenever possible, I try to use left-wing sources for left-wing critical news and right-wing sources for right-wing critical news, because it's harder for people to say it's a fake news source. Okay, you want to accuse CNN of lying, I get it, but they lie in favor of the left. This is not that. I'll leave it there. I got another video coming up at 4 p.m. Eastern. I believe, as of right now, the story I'm working on, MSNBC's ratings taking a huge hit after the collapse of Russiagate. Stick around, youtube.com/Timcast. It is a different channel than this one. I will see you there.